Hello and welcome to J&B Talk F1 on this special race day preview ahead of the Belgian Grand Prix. I'm Jawad Yacoub as always, joining me Baden Westerweller. How are you today?
Gentlemen, afternoon or morning, depending which corner of the globe we're greeting you from on this occasion. But yes, here we are. We're counting down to the resumption of the Formula One season. I can't wait. It feels like it's been an eternity since Hungary 4 weeks ago.
It has been an eternity, as you say, indeed. But yeah, qualifying wrapped up, as we know, overnight. And overnight, of course, here in Australia. And it was none other than Lewis Hamilton who claimed his 10th pole position of the season. And in doing so, he actually claimed the pole position trophy for the season as well. There's 8 races to go, but no one can match him now in terms of qualifying. And as well as his 10th pole position of the season, he also claimed his 6th pole in a row, which was a record set by Michael Schumacher back in 2001. So he's equaled that now. So ominous form for Hamilton. Sorry,
I'm guessing that Lewis might have been quite blessed after that achievement, if I do say so myself.
I'm pretty sure he would have been in lieu of whatever else he does outside off the track. But it was Lewis Hamilton who claimed pole position ahead of Nico Rosberg, his teammate, who tended to struggle quite a bit in the final part of qualifying. Hamilton was had a quick lap all throughout it, whilst Rosberg, he set the fastest first sector on his final lap, but from the second sector onwards, he was just behind his teammate. So Rosberg will line up second on the grid. But the biggest, surprises in qualifying was Ferrari, when we saw Kimi Räikkönen being knocked out in Q2 after he had yet another car failure. He had to park the car at Stavelot. He was stuck in 5th gear, and that was the end of his qualifying, and he ended up only in 15th, but because of some penalties, he will move up, as we'll detail later on. And also Sebastian Vettel in Q3, he was only 9th fastest, and when interviewed after the race, he said that it wasn't, that was all that they were good enough for that day. So it just shows that, as much as we were expecting before this weekend Ferrari to be up there in Belgium, they just, dropped behind on the Saturday. But going through the grid order now, Valtteri Bottas was 3rd fastest for Williams. Roman Grosjean was 4th fastest for Lotus, which is the season best result for the Enstone team. But because of a gearbox penalty, Grosjean will drop down 5 places, allowing Sergio Perez to move up for Force India into 4th, and that's a really good position for the Mexican to start. We've got Daniel Ricciardo on the grid at 5th for Red Bull Racing, whilst his teammate is down outside of the top 10, as we'll look at a bit later on as well. Daniel Kvyat, Felipe Massa 6th. In the Williams, Pastor Maldonado 7th. Then we've got Vettel in 8th. Grosjean will be 9th now on the grid after his penalty. Carlos Sainz also made it into the top 10, and he'll start 10th. Then Nico Hülkenberg and Daniel Kvyat, for me, they were the biggest losers of Q2, as well as Kimi Räikkönen. They clearly had cars that could have got themselves into the top 10, but yeah, they were just a bit unlucky with the likes of Sainz making it through, and also Perez. So both those guys are out. They'll be starting 11th and 12th on the grid, Hülkenberg and Kvyat. Marcus Ericsson put in a good effort to out-qualify his teammate in Felipe Nasser. Marcus Ericsson, he was 13th. Kimi Räikkönen, with a few penalties, moves up to 14th on the grid. Considering Kimi's the king of Spa with 4 previous victories around the circuit, and also he's had his Ferrari contract renewed this season, during the week, and he'll be starting 14th. Then we've got Felipe Nasser starting 15th, Will Stevens in 16th for Mana Marussia, and Roberto Merri in 17th also for Mana Marussia. And then we have the penalty people, Max Verstappen. He's dropped 10 places because of a internal combustion change for the Toro Rosso team. They ended up taking their 6th internal combustion unit, which means an instant 10-place grid penalty. And how about this? McLaren at the back of the grid, led by Jenson Button, taking a total of 105 places. Now, how ridiculous does that sound?
You might as well say to them, see you later in what would it be, Mexico perhaps, or Japan?
Well, I said the moon perhaps, or whatever, or in a
Sounds
different
appropriate.
Or in a different universe. But one thing that I would like to strictly emphasize upon the viewers or whatever is that even though they're just going off the regulations, and for each power unit change as a whole, it's like 5 places per component. It all adds up, and I guess 105 places is just the adding up the cumulative total of what the penalties are. But since the Austrian Grand Prix, when they changed the regulations, and then they won't take drivers will not take additional penalties during the race if they can't serve out their initial grid penalties. So it's nothing to worry about. They say 105 places, but it's not a big worry. They're just going to start from the back of the grid, but they won't take any subsequent penalties further on. But the reason why they're taking 105 or whatever places is because Honda has introduced 2 new engines for both drivers, so essentially 4 new power units for the team. And they've also used 3 development tokens during the break, so we haven't seen much progress.
The much vaunted development upgrades have clearly gone a long way, not towards a Ferrari as they proclaim. So said Mr. Arai prior to Spa that they were going to be hot on the heels of Ferrari, who were pretty much making inroads on Mercedes leading to that break. So that's going to be a bit of a come down for the McLaren and Honda.
Yeah, Yasuhisa Arai-san for McLaren, for the Honda side of things. He said that they'd be on par with Ferrari come Belgium, but we haven't seen that during practice or even qualifying for another hand. But there are a few people who hint that perhaps they know that in qualifying spec they're not going to be too good, so perhaps they're conserving the power for the race. So perhaps it's better to form a judgment around McLaren's progress after the race. But then again, Spa is such a power-dependent track. It was going to be a difficult weekend anyway for them. But anyway, that's what the grid looks like. And Jenson Button, the only consolation for him will be that he outqualified his teammate Fernando Alonso, who's starting at the back of the grid, and they've got Max Verstappen ahead and the Manners to pass as well. So if, as you alluded to before, Baden, the Arai-san's prediction of them being on par with Ferrari, if that is the case, then perhaps we may see them yet end up in the points. But Lewis Hamilton starting from the front, Nico Rosberg, his teammate alongside, and the conjecture pretty much now lies around, the start. As we detailed in our Wednesday podcast, the start procedures have changed. The drivers were not allowed to adjust their clutch bite point at all today before the race. They probably did it yesterday, or they most definitely did it yesterday or whatever. And from now on, it cannot be adjusted or tampered with whatsoever. So what do you think of this? What are there more? Is it more of a unpredictable start, do you think?
Well, first of all, it's no great surprise to see that the Silver Arrows are filling out the front 2 rows as they've done so many occasions this season. But the start's going to be a different question, as attested to Silverstone and Budapest, when we saw quite tardy getaways from Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg there. And this bite point notion, it's been quite contentious throughout the summer break. A lot of talk from different corners, whether it's just going to filter out the natural starters from those who really rely on this reference point to make a clean getaway. And indeed, should just mention briefly, Mark Webber did come out and mention his concerns that it could lead to some sort of chaos off the line if a car does happen to stall. But the fact remains Mercedes, same position as usual, first and second. But if they encounter the same woes as we saw before the break, we've got a Valtteri Bottas once again ready to pounce in P3, and of course added incentive on top of this new implementation with the clutch bite point. He's been essentially, you wouldn't say rejected by Ferrari, but the news that he will not be moving to Maranello for next season looks like he'll probably end up staying at Williams for another 12 months. So he'll have a lot to prove from P3. So he might have a fair bit of a conviction in him to really make his point known off the line this evening.
Bottas also saying in regards to the whole Ferrari speculation that it actually has hurt his relationship a little bit with Williams. More on that perhaps next Wednesday when we follow up this podcast. But it's interesting you say that the whole start procedures and everything, and Mark Webber's point of view that it could cause some more chaos, because the run into turn one, La Source has seen quite a bit of chaos in the last, in the history of the Belgian Grand Prix. We don't need to look back as far as
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years to the 2012 Belgian Grand Prix with Romain Grosjean and the infamous infamous start where he took out, I think it was Lewis Hamilton,
Fernando 5 or 6
Fernando Alonso as well, two of the key championship contenders that season, out before the first corner. So La Source the first corner isn't a stranger to a chaotic start, but we've also got weather that could be a factor as well.
What did you mention? 90% chance of downpour, was it in the Ardennes Forest?
On Friday, it was said that perhaps 90% chance of downpour and thunderstorms for the race, but it's unsure whether it will rain or not. We'll see when it comes prior to the race, but what we're saying now is don't rule it out as being a factor at all. But if it is going to be a dry race, we expect a two-stop strategy from most.
Sounds pretty much for Mercedes. Obviously, the start notwithstanding, they're clearly going to dictate proceedings. Whoever has the lead into that first corner, the first couple of laps. Of course, we can't discount the events of 12 months ago within proceedings. Who can forget lap 2 last year? Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton. We did mention this quite prevalently on the Wednesday edition, but two stops for the whole if nothing comes to pass in those opening laps. For some of the lesser lights, perhaps they will opt to pursue an alternate strategy. We looked further down the grid. Obviously, someone like Sergio Perez there, who are back in his even Sauber days, if we go back to 2012 when he enjoyed greater successes, and of course Force India themselves. They've had quite throughout various iterations, it must be said, with their operation there. They've had quite a few successes at the Spa circuit, not least 1998 when Damon Hill took the maiden victory alongside Ralph Schumacher to make it a 1-2 for Jordan. And you fast forward through to 2009 with Giancarlo Fisichella. He took pole position there. That was a magnanimous day, and everyone was quite happy for the entire outfit there. And he came within pretty much inches of victory, only for Kimi Räikkönen to pip him. And this translates to Sergio Perez today. Alternate strategy, perhaps, if he does a one-stopper, we could see him on the podium, starting P4 now, courtesy of Grosjean's penalty there. He could be a big mover and shaker. I don't know about you, Jawad, but he's one to look out for. He's one to look out for, but also Daniel Ricciardo as well, starting at a 5th position. Remember, Ricciardo won this race. He got there eventually. Sorry, won this race last year. After the Mercedes both tripped over, Nico Rosberg tripped over Lewis Hamilton, and there was a lot of drama in that. But Ricciardo also no stranger to the Belgian circuit, and he won that race last year. I finally got it. Pat me on the back. Yeah, I got a pat on the back. Yeah, I wonder if you can hear that or not. But so Ricciardo also contended there for the podium, but then but Bottas starting out a 3rd, and he's got probably a bit of pressure on him after all the whole Ferrari conjecture and whatever, and he has to show to Williams that he's still loyal and whatever. So that'll be interesting to see. But Perez, he's no stranger to pulling a rabbit out of the hat when it comes to strategy. We saw him in Bahrain last. It was last year that Bahrain last year where he scored a maiden podium for Force India. It must be said on that occasion as well, Nico Hülkenberg was P5 and he was also quite ecstatic on that occasion. So Force India, these kind of events, they're renowned to double up. When they have a good weekend, they tend to do it to the maximum effect. So look out for also his teammate. But also then, as well as Force India, despite the penalty for Romain Grosjean and Lotus, it was a surprise to see them up there in qualifying, both cars in the top 10. And with all this talk about Renault taking over and whatnot, they just need good results on the board. Pastor Maldonado, he's probably under pressure
for the first time in his career to retain his seat for the next season in Formula One. Perhaps he won't be there at Lotus if Renault decide to take over the Enstone operation. Perhaps Maldonado will be out of a drive, so a good result for him might go a long way or whatever. But Grosjean now starting out of 8th, he needs to get a good result and make sure that this operation stays alive or whatever. We look at Max Verstappen as well, starting out of right close to the back of the grid.
Well, should we point out as well, Max, there's conjecture, a lot of it, like whether it's confirmed or otherwise, if he is indeed a native of Belgium. He's got I believe, a Belgian mother, and
he's Belgian. Well, he's Belgian born, is Verstappen, so I guess this is his home race. So
it's a bit of
a good result for Verstappen at his home race or whatever would be quite well, but he's starting down all the way in 18th position, so it'll be a tough ask to see what happens there this time. But other than that, the weather is one thing that we said. Also, the new start procedure is also pretty shaky as to see what happens.
If we're taking a punt, what would you say, based on the past 2 events? Clearly, Mercedes are the ones to beat, but Lewis and Nico, they came through obviously at Britain because of the faux pas committed by Williams when they didn't release Valtteri Bottas into the sunset when Felipe Massa was controlling proceedings there. And then, of course, Ferrari got the job done with Sebastian Vettel. He was unperturbed with Kimi Räikkönen, who suffered his own setbacks, ultimately culminating in retirement. But clearly for Mercedes, they want to get it right here, I'd say. So it's all about really, you'd say beyond the first, if they can get it right the first corner and lead into the, what do you call it, Erouge and Pouin, they're going to be hard sought after to be defeated. Beyond that point, the first corner really is critical to establishing the outcome.
Well, considering that they've got it wrong for 2 races in a row, Silverstone and Hungary, as you said, it's not going to be third time lucky for getting it wrong. They're going to get it. It's more than likely they're going to get it right this time. And Hamilton and Rosberg, let's not kid it, they are 2 of the best operators on the grid. And if you're going to say who's going to get a good start, it's probably going to be those 2. So if those 2 get a good start, it's goodbye to the race. They'll be off into the distance. It'll be an affair between those 2. But if they don't, you've got Valtteri Bottas lurking. You've got Sergio Perez as well in 4th, which is, the best qualifying we've seen from a Force India this season as well. And it's a shame that if Grosjean didn't have that gearbox penalty, he would have been up there as well, and perhaps a podium would be knocking his first podium since 2013. That would have been something for the Frenchman. But one thing that we haven't pointed out just yet is Hamilton at this circuit in particular is accustomed to so much bad luck.
08 for one.
08 for one, where he was stripped of his victory. He's had 3 pole positions, let's not kid you, 3 pole positions at this circuit, but only 1 victory.
Well, he did say actually quite prevalently in the media, I've only won 1 race, but I count it as 2 because 08 was really my victory, but I was stripped of it.
Well, it's the same thing he says about Monaco this season as well, but on paper, he hasn't won, so you just got to forget about it and move on. So I guess starting from pole position, this is his chance to win the race. Whether he can come through on it or not is another question. We said in the lead up to this event this weekend on Wednesday and through our articles as well that this is Rosberg's chance for redemption. If he can redeem himself from what happened last year, his championship back on track.
Otherwise, the teacup will be shattering, as you alluded to.
It won't be shattering. It will remain shattered as it already is.
Irrevocably.
Pretty much, exactly. So, but then again, Hamilton's bad luck. As you said, 2008, where he was stripped of his victory. 2012, where he was taken out at the first corner by Grosjean. 2013 as well, he was on pole position, but irrevertibly, Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber just cavorted off into the distance, and it was Vettel who won that race. But and then last year, 2014, where he had that infamous run-in with his teammate Rosberg, and it was Rosberg to blame for that. So there's just a big fat question mark on this race as to what's going to happen. And I guess the safest bet would be to say Lewis Hamilton will pull through, but considering the starts that we've had at the last 2 races, Silverstone and Hungary, how unpredictable they were, and then the whole new start procedure as well, no adjustments to the clutch bite point, the weather as well, we just don't know what's going to happen. And also, one thing I would like to bring up as well, also, Sebastian Vettel, even though he's starting down 8th position, remember back to Canada, he was starting outside of the top 10 in like 15th or whatever, and he made it to like fourth or fifth on the grid. So quick Ferraris, they can come through the field pretty quickly, and he could be in contention too for a podium. So don't rule that out.
Absolutely, it doesn't mean it's a foregone conclusion that these established front runners of the first portion of the campaign will remain there. Obviously, and as I did allude to at Hungary, rather you could say smartly or not. Otherwise, anything could happen. But I put my money on Mercedes. I remain steadfast to this this theory for this evening. Clearly, Mercedes on the Saturdays, they have the pace, and they'll probably remain in this this fashion for the balance of the season. But with this implementation of the clutch bite point restriction, if we can ever get our head around the phrases there, we'll get there eventually. Wait till Brazil and Abu Dhabi, and we'll have it down pat so fluent that you'll never know it's ever been implemented. But the point remains that yes, on Sundays it's a different question, but really. For Mercedes, unless they make another mess up of that start, they're going to be the ones to catch. But otherwise, first race back from the now traditional summer break, and as we saw to 2012 can be attested to it. There's always the potential for chaos. La Source, it's the one track on the calendar where first corner you're waiting with bated breath, honestly thinking there's a more probable than not chance that you're going to be seeing 3 or 4 cars out for the count,
and a safety car out pretty early on as well. But when it comes to tips, I'm going to ask you first, just to be safe. Who would you put on?
I'm going to say we're going to be conservative. I'm going to say Lewis is going to get the job done this time. I'm going to say P2. P2, it's a toss-up between Nico and Sergio Perez does just seem to have this vibe around him this week, and he might just pull off something, get himself up there on the podium. Whether it's P2 or P3, who knows? But don't quote me on that one. Let's just say after Hungary, when I said anything could happen and I thought there was a good chance of it, we all saw what did transpire. So this weekend, I'm saying Lewis, just based on him rectifying the woes he endured at Silverstone and Budapest. But I reckon there'll be someone different who accompanies the Mercedes duo on that rostrum come the end of the race.
Yeah, I'd have to probably say Lewis as well, just to be safe. But at the same time, in terms of Nico's championship, it would be good to see him win. But also to point out as well that perhaps later on this week, he might become a dad for the first time as well. So imagine him winning the race just before he became father to perhaps a daughter or a son. We don't know yet, but his wife, as the media have suggested all weekend so far, that and have asked Nico, they said, what happens if your wife goes into labor while you're over here? Is there a standby plane or whatever? And he's remained pretty calm about it, and I think he just wants to get through the race pretty calmly as well. So
get through the race and get to the chopper.
Yes, as Toto Wolff would say. But anyway, so it could be an affair for Mercedes-AMG to take out, but we don't know whether it be Lewis or Nico. It depends on what happens at the start, and also the weather is a factor as well. Look out also for the Ferraris coming through the field. McLaren too, whether their prediction of being in the points will be true or not. But yeah, it should be a very good race, exciting race, if it's anything like the last 2 events we've seen. So from me, Jawad, thank you for tuning in for this race day podcast, and same to you, Baden.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be back on Wednesday reviewing Belgium, and we'll also have obviously the Renault situation. We're looking at this talk that Red Bull might have in fact terminated their agreement with the Gris-Châtillon, potentially with an announcement to come within a fortnight at Monza. And we'll also look at, again, with Kimi Raikkonen's renewal at Ferrari, amongst other things. And there's sure to be plenty more of a fallout from this evening, the first race in a month. But of course, as we say, Belgium, it's one of those events where there's a crazy crazy things which transpire, and we really look forward to it. It's the event, one of the marquee events of the season, so it's really one which we anticipate with great suspense.
Indeed, and Lewis Hamilton, a bit of a unlucky charm here at this event. But anyway, we can't wait for the race to start later on. And from me, Jawad, Baden, thank you for joining us, and see you guys on Wednesday. Thank you very much.
Very nice.